All right, now we are going to work on solving multi-step equations. Now, when we think about solving multi-step equations, it is very similar to what we've already done with two-step, with one-step equations. The big difference is on this very first step where it says simplify when possible, a lot of these are now going to be able to be simplified, whether that be collecting like terms, whether that be distributive property. There will be some extra step in these that cause them to be a multi-step equation. Other than that, you are going to do this very similar to what we did with two-step equations. So we're still doing the reverse order of operations that we're thinking through. We're still working with our inverse operations to isolate the variable. We're still trying to get the variable completely by itself. And remember, our inverse operations undo. So if my problem has addition, I'm going to use subtraction. If my problem has multiplication, I'm going to use division to undo those things. All right, so let's just jump right in and see what we can get going here. So if you look at this first problem, it says 3x minus 4 plus 2x equals 16. Okay, so the first thing I should see is I have like terms here. I have a 3x and a positive 2x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take those two and I'm going to put them together. So 3x plus a positive 2x gives me 5x. Well, then the 4 has nothing alike to it, so I am just going to bring that down. Now at this point, I'm going to start to solve. So I look what is the least connected to that variable, and at this point it would be the 4. It's a subtract 4, so to undo that, I am going to add 4 to both sides. That's going to leave me with 5x is equal to 20. At that point, I come down, I'm going to take, and I'm going to divide by 5, and that's going to leave me with x equals 4. Now, if I wanted to check it, like I said, it is always in your best interest to check your work. It's not a required thing, but it is in your best interest. What I would simply do is I would plug that 4 in for both of my x's and then work the problem out and see if I get 16. So 3 times 4 is 12 minus 4, and then 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so 12 minus 4, we would just start in. We'd work left to right by order of operations. So 12 minus 4 is 8. 8 plus 8, that's 16. That is what we wanted, so we know we did that problem correctly. Okay, so let's jump over here to number 2. So the first thing I notice on number 2 is I have like terms again. I have positive 4 and a negative 6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to recopy my problem, combining those. Well, the negative 2y doesn't have anything, so I'm just going to write it as negative 2y. Be careful there. Make sure that you include that negative with the 2y. Then I have a positive 4 added to a negative 6. So if you have positive 4, you add it to a negative 6, you would get a negative 2. Now we're ready to solve. So at this point, we take the negative 2 without the y. That's the least connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That's going to leave me with 14 is equal to 2y. Then at that point, I'm going to take and I'm going to divide by negative 2, and I will get negative 7 is equal to y. At this point, we can check this one as well. We would simply plug it back in. So we would have 4 minus 2 times negative 7 minus 6. So what that gives me is 4 minus 2 times negative 7, that's a negative 14, minus 6. So remember, minusing a negative turns into adding a positive. Order of operations says we'd start at the left, work to the right. So 4 plus 14, that's 18. Minus 6, that's going to give me 12. That is what we wanted it to be, so we know that is the correct answer. So that is 2 examples of solving a multi-step equation. Okay, let's continue this and solve a couple others. Now, on this problem, you're going to notice parentheses have shown up. So what that means is that is the first thing I'm going to do to simplify. Remember when we worked on distributive property, that's what's going on there. We have a number in front of that grouping. So we're going to take that number and we are going to distribute it. So 4 times 2x, that's 8x. 4 times negative 1, that's a negative 4, plus 3 is equal to 31. Well, if you notice, I can simplify something else. Since I did my distributive, now I can simplify my negative 4 and positive 3. So I'm going to copy my 8x down. I have negative 4 plus a positive 3. So that's going to give me a negative 1, and that equals 31. Now at this point, I'm going to take the 1 is the least connected. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So that's going to get me 8x is equal to 32. Then I'm multiplying by 8. To undo that, I divide, and I would end up with x equals 4. Now, here's what the check looks like then. We take that number, we plug it back in, and see if it equals 31. So it'd be 4 times 2 times 4 minus 1, all in groupings, plus 3. So remember, order of operations says we do that grouping first. Well, 2 times 4, that's 8. 8 minus 1 is 7. So I have 4 times 7 plus 3. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 3, that is indeed 31. That's what we wanted it to be, so that we know we have the correct answer there. Okay, let's try another one like this that has that distributive property in it. So if you notice, we have the distributive property here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that negative 2 and we're going to distribute it. So negative 2 times 8, that's going to get me a negative 16. Then we're going to go negative 2 times a negative x, that's going to give me a positive 2x, and that equals negative 26. At this point, we start to solve now. So the least connected this time is the 16. I look in front of the 16, it's a negative, so I am going to add 16 to both sides. That's going to bring down a positive 2x. Negative 26 plus 16, that's going to give me a negative 10. At this point, I have 2 times x, so to undo that, I divide by 2. And that's going to leave me x equals negative 5. Here's the check, so we can look at that. So for the check, we would simply take the negative 5, plug it back in for x. Notice just a couple things. When we plug back in, I like to use parentheses. It's a good, safe way of plugging in. Okay, so we start in the innermost parentheses, so plus a positive. So 8 plus a positive 5, that's going to be 13. And then negative 2 times a positive 13, that's a negative 26. And that is indeed what we wanted, so we know that we have the correct answer. All right, we're going to work 2 more, but these you'll notice have a couple more steps to them. So we have distributive property going on, we have some collecting of like terms going on, so the whole mixture kind of everything now. So if you look first, what do we have going on? We have the distributive property right here. We have a number written right next to a grouping, so we want to eliminate that first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute by the negative 3. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to go 6. Negative 3 times 2x, that's going to give me negative 6x. Negative 3 times 1, that's going to give me negative 3, and that equals 9. Now, hopefully you recognize that we have a like term here. Nothing with an x, but we do have a like term. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring down the one with the x, make sure that we remember that negative is attached to that 6x. So I'm going to write down negative 6x. Then I'm going to do the like term. So I have 6 and a negative 3 here. So if I have 6 things, I add it to a negative 3, that would get me a positive 3 left. At that point now, the 3 is the least connected, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and I end up with 6x equals 6. At that now, we divide by a negative 6, and that's going to leave me with x equals negative 1. To plug it back in, it's going to look very similar to the other ones that we have done. So we would literally just go 6 minus 3, and then in parentheses, 2 times negative 1 plus 1, and we're asking, do you equal 9? So order of operations would say, hey, do everything in that grouping. So 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1, that's going to get us negative 1. Then I'm going to take and go 3 times -1. So I have 6 minus 3 times -1 is a -3. Remember, subtracting a negative turns to adding a positive. 6 plus 3 is 9. That's what we wanted it to be. So we are correct there. All right, let's try this last one, number 6 here. So we start off and we look, do we have any like terms? Well, this time we have quite a few. So I have this 6x and I also have this 8x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those together first. So I have a positive 6x, I have a negative 8x, so that's going to get me a negative 2x. Then I take a look, do I have anything else? Well, I have this negative 4 and this positive 2. So now I'm going to go negative 4 plus a positive 2. That's going to give me a negative 2, and that equals negative 24. Now, as you can see, once we did all the combining of like terms, it's a simple two-step problem now. The 2 is the least connected, so we're going to add 2 to it. We have negative 2x equals negative 22. At that point, we divide by negative 2, and we would be left with x equals positive 11. So let's check it just to make sure we didn't make a silly mistake here. So if we take the 11, plug it back in, we get 6 times 11 minus 4 minus 8 times 11 plus 2. And then we just work left to right here. We do some multiplying first. 6 times 11, that's 66. Minus 4. 8 times 11 is minus 88. And we have that plus 2. Well, everything's addition and subtraction now. So we're going to start on the left-hand side. Just simply work to the right-hand side. 66 minus 4, that's 62. And then we have that minus 88 plus 2. And then 62 minus 88, that's going to give us a negative 26 plus 2. And then negative 26 plus 2, that's going to give us a negative 24. And that is our answer. And that is the main difference between a multi-step equation and a two-step. Happy solving.